It's playoff time. The Fire may have missed an opportunity over the weekend, but they still did just enough to ensure a home game tomorrow night. Today I'm joined by Joe Chatz and Tim Hotze to recap Decision Day and look ahead to the Fire's first playoff game since 2017 as they take on Orlando City tomorrow night. We're talking about it today on CHGO Fire. Hello and welcome to a first ever postseason edition of CHGO Fire. I'm Alex Campbell. Thanks so much for joining us here live on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts. And it's a big occasion, so we need to have multiple guests, and I'm joined by two very good friends of the show in studio. Tim Hotze of Men in Red 97. Tim, good as always to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And calling in from the home of probably the biggest Millwall fan in Metro Chicago, Joe Chatz on Tap SportsNet. How are you, sir?
Oh, doing wonderfully. 3 points up the Lions.
Oh, no, up maybe those Lions,
Whoa.
but maybe not some other Lions that we'll be talking about later. Please, no one clip that. Anyway, let's get right to it. The MLS playoff bracket is set. The Fire are the 8th seed, which means they are the hosts for the wild card game, and they will take on the Philadelphia Union if they advance. Elsewhere in the East, we get a Hell is Real matchup in the first round. That's exciting. Miami take on Nashville. Nashville will hope that goes better than their Decision Day matchup went. Charlotte against NYCFC in a battle of teams with black and blue round badges. On the other side, the Western Conference, you've got Portland and RSL battling for who gets to get sacrificed to San Diego. Minnesota against Seattle in the only interesting matchup in the first round out west. LA, Austin, and Vancouver, Dallas. Not a lot of movement in the end of the day out in the East. So let's take, and we'll discuss from here, just take a look at how we got here with how Decision Day went with the various results from Decision Day and the table that resulted from it. Fire tie New England, Columbus win, Nashville just gets stopped by Miami, and Orlando weirdly gets stopped by Toronto. Tim, I'll start with you. When you think about the way Decision Day panned out in the East, what kind of stands out the most, do you think?
Look, it ended the way that I think a lot of us thought it would. I think the Fire were always most likely to be in 8th place.
Right, that was the most likely place. It had the most different permutations that landed them there.
But like during Decision Day itself, it was up, it was down. It was like one goal could have like radically up into the table at the bottom part. Like it was wild, but like I think it landed more or less the way that a lot of us thought that it might.
Joe, you and I both tweeted out before the final goal of the Fire New England game that the Fire were headed to Orlando. It's the emotional roller coaster, if nothing else, was fun about this. The Fire get a home game, but I mean, I guess we can say at least it was entertaining, even if it wasn't what most Fire fans were hoping for, and not the opportunity that was sitting on a plate if they'd gotten one more goal.
Yeah, it was entertaining, but when you look at the way the 2 goals were conceded, it's so frustrating considering it was just a lazy touch from Jay Davila, and then after a set piece at late in the game, 90+6, they got the 2 goals late that they needed. The team struggled so much early on to even just generate shots on target. So they escaped. That's the right word, because they were playing for a lot of that game like they should have been the 9th seed. So they are very fortunate to be hosting midweek.
Yeah, so the way it panned out was Nashville in 6th place on 54 points with 16 wins. Columbus in 7th, also on 54 points, but with 14 wins. And then Fire and Orlando tied on 53 points apiece, but the Fire win the tiebreaker on 15 wins. The other thing that was settled on Decision Day that we haven't touched on, congratulations to DC United on winning the Wooden Spoon and seeing off, I suppose, Atlanta United to claim that award. And I think we can all agree they are probably frontrunners to do it again next year. So,
CF Montreal's entered the chat. Don't ever discount CF Montreal.
oh, it's going to be an absolute dogfight to see which one of those teams can win the race to the bottom of Major League Soccer next season. Somebody tell those teams that you can't tank an MLS anymore for a probably overrated college forward. New England 2, Fire 2. Lineup notes on this one. Jonathan Dean comes back in at right wing back after getting a break. The midfield combo du jour was Jay Davila and Romani Kouame. As we'll get to, probably not going to see that combo again. Joe Bamba comes back in for Brian Gutierrez. Yeah, Joe, we'll get to how they did, but is this kind of the team you expected and what you figured Greg Berhalter viewed at least going into the weekend as his best 11?
Yeah, the Kwame thing is interesting, but they're trying to see what they can do with him. He has the ability to go up and play defensively, so that's kind of what they see the value in. But otherwise, nothing really surprising. You look at it defensively, you have Justin Reynolds on the bench now consistently, and Mauricio Pineda, Brian Gutierrez, and Sergio Orhel Jr. are bench options at this point for this team, and that's kind of what I'm going to expect tomorrow. Marin Haile Selassie's role is kind of the big X factor. How many minutes can he play? Because he can be such a catalyst offensively if they need it from a wingback spot. So he's the big question as to what his role is going to be midweek, because he could be the X factor, especially if the Fire don't come out firing offensively.
Yeah, because that's going to be the big question is, even if, despite his mistake and despite the fact that, it happens 1 minute into this game, I think we can probably see that Davila is going to be in there. And then the question is, who goes next to him? Does Koume get another run out? Does Brian Gutierrez, come in as a really attacking option? Does he maybe start more forward? As we'll talk about in a minute. Sergio Orhel, also an option there as well. So that kind of does seem like the big unknown.
Well, that and like what formation does Greg start off with? Because it started off with three center backs, so like a 5-2, like going from there, and it didn't work. Like the Fire got nothing offensively in the first half. Now, obviously, being down a goal let New England just like sit back and absorb. But switching to a 4-3-3 at half is what created both goals for the Fire. And I think the question is, do we see that at kickoff, or does he try rolling the dice again with essentially taking out a midfielder for a central defender for stability? Right,
and I think the question with that becomes, what kind of game do they expect Orlando to try to play? Because Orlando at their best are a team that want the ball. Orlando not at their best right now. So I could see a scenario where Orlando are kind of willing to give the Fire the ball, and in which case, yeah, I think going Guti and Orhel like we saw at halftime would make a whole lot of sense. Joe, what's your 2 cents on that? Do you expect we're going to see Greg stay with the back three, or do you think there is some logic to saying, hey, let's see something a bit more front-footed from the jump rather than maybe running out of time to implement, a more attacking strategy?
There definitely is the ability for this team to play from the front foot from the start. I wouldn't mind seeing the option of 4 in the back and just bringing on Sam Rogers if you need to, because he can provide something in an attacking sense, just in the idea that he can really run up the pitch effectively if you need him to and allow him to. So I wouldn't mind seeing a back 4. It's what the Fire have done against Orlando twice already this year. Unless they really feel comfortable in the back 5, and that's the overarching feeling throughout the squad, and it just makes everyone comfortable. They're comfortable going to PKs potentially because you're going with the defensive formation, then fine. But I would say sometimes it's just, this hasn't been broken all year. They might as well not fix it.
Right. Well, what broke in the first minute of this game was a whole lot of things, just a total absolute disaster playing out of the back here. Brady passed to Davila, really casual touch. Alsan Yusuf pounces on it, chips Brady, 1-0. Sure, this is on Jay Davila more than it is on everybody else, but you can't help but feel, and Joe, I think you were kind of getting at this earlier, this goal looked exactly like the goal they gave up early against Columbus in the first match of the season, just Davila in the Sergio Orhel role in this case. And beyond the individual mistake here, it's just so frustrating that this is something we're still seeing this team do in match day 34 after they did it in match day 1. For all the improvement we've seen over the course of the season, Tim, of this team, it's really frustrating to see this kind of mistake is still in this group.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, it was just one casual touch, and I think that like mistakes are going to happen. I think part of it was just the playing surface in New England. The team hadn't played on turf in a million years, and I think they were just surprised by how quickly the ball was moving on it. And I think that kind of explained the casual touch from Davila. Based on what we've seen from SeatGeek, that's not likely going to be an issue for the Fire against Orlando.
No.
So there's that going for it. That ball would have stayed right at Davila's feet on the pitch at SeatGeek. So
yeah, so not going to concern there because, speaking of slow, the Fire were slow in this game. Credit to the Revs for the intensity they played with literally nothing to play for in this game. They're under an interim coach. Their season's been over, whatever. The Fire, it kind of felt like they were going to walk through this game without much trouble. Zinkernagel had the juice. He always does, but nobody else really did. We mentioned as this game goes into halftime 1-0, Kouame and Rogers get pulled at half for Guti and Orihel. Joe, to continue our earlier conversation, what grade would you give Romani Kouame for his audition for this spot? And, what do you give the odds that he gets another try at it or a callback audition, should we say?
Solid C. He did nothing to say that he should do it or should get it going forward, but he didn't really do anything to say he shouldn't. So a solid mediocre effort in terms of output. So I would not be surprised to see him start again midweek. It's one of those things that I think the Fire at this point see him as, if nothing else, a floor raiser next to Davila. He really helps him with the communication part of the game. He's done a lot of the things Davila's had to do. So if the Fire really think that they need someone next to Davila to keep his mind right, obviously last weekend wasn't the best proof of concept in this idea, but that might be a reason to give Kouame the start and let Gutierrez and Orihel Jr. come on late. I also assume Gutierrez and Orihel Jr. are better options for PKs if you get to that point than Kouame. So, again, another reason to keep them on the bench for later, even though you're not going to play for PKs. That's just not logical.
Yeah, but I think that Kouame, the other thing that he's not a fantastic midfielder in this league. Like, he's not going to be a 9 out of 10 guy, but he's one of the only ones that I think can convincingly play both sides of the midfield role of both getting involved in the attack. He's gotten goals as well as take care of the defensive business. Whereas a lot of the Davila doesn't really get forward that much. Gutierrez and Orihel don't really defend that much. And Kwame's the one that, even though he's not anything at the level of what Franco was bringing while he was in the squad, he can handle both sides of that role, which gives more flexibility for whoever the partners are around him.
Right. He's going to be a 5 out of 10 to Joe's floor raising point. He's going to give you a 5 out of 10. He gives you substitution flexibility depending on what you want to do. Let's say if Davila picks up a knock midway through the game, you're not panicking and saying, we need absolutely to bring on, say, Mauricio Pineda here because we don't trust Kouame to do the more defensive stuff. You mentioned, Joe, the idea of, Gutierrez as a guy coming off the bench, and you talked about Marin Haile Selassie. I think we've got to know, Jonathan Bamba gets yanked in the 58th minute of this game, like sub for Marin Haile Selassie. It's another one of these games where Joe just is pretty anonymous. How much, I guess, Tim, I'll start with you on this one. How much are the Fire's odds tomorrow dependent on whether they get a Joe Bamba shows up game or not?
Look, I think that Bamba has tried to overcomplicate the games, and that's been what's held him back. I think that it's not so much that he hasn't shown up, it's just that he hasn't shown up in the places that end up getting reflected on the score sheet, and especially when things aren't going the Fire's way. And the Fire have gotten results when he's nowhere near the score sheet, right? So, I think that that's going to be okay.
He's a bonus. When he's on, that's just kind of become a bonus for this team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing is, just the work that he does on that side of the pitch, it does draw defenders his way, and that creates space for other people. And I think that that's kind of an underrated part of what he has brought, even though I think all of us want to see him just take 1 or 2 fewer touches, go for a goal when it's right in front of him. And he would have had twice as many goals if he had done that consistently throughout the season. And I think it's been frustrating, but it's not just a frustration here. That's why he came to Chicago, and as opposed to staying in a top 5 league in Europe. Right.
And it's not like Brian Gutierrez, Joe, is exactly going to be, an answer to a guy who's super decisive in the penalty area and is going to bury chances. But I am, to your earlier point, it's going to be interesting to see how Guti is used in this game, because you figure he's going to play a role of some sort somewhere on the pitch. To your point, if the Fire are getting near penalties, he's absolutely one of the takers. If you just look at, I think we would probably all agree it would be Guti, Kuipers, and Zinkernagel 1, 2, 3, and then after that, again, you're you're in whoever feels like taking a penalty land at that point, because, you know, it's just kind of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be mad to see Brian Gutierrez start instead of Joe Bamba in this game. Again, don't think we're going to get it, but, you know, I think it's something that, you know, should at least be considered. Somebody who's, again, been top level all season. The Fire do eventually get their goal. Of course, it is Philip Zinkernagel who gets it level. He credited Marin Haile Selassie for the pass he played into Kuipers on this play, and then Kuipers and Zinkernagel do a nice little combo. Zinkernagel just roofs it past Matt Turner, and for the viewers on YouTube, we're going to look at the stats for Phil this season. Just, he has been, as we've talked about several times, you know, Joe, you've written about, Tim, you guys over at Men in Red have podcasted and written about plenty, how great Philip Zinkernagel has been this season. 31 starts, 32 appearances, a nice even 15-15 goals and assists, sets the club's single season mark in goal contributions, plays over 2,500 minutes. Joe, it's kind of crazy to say, but maybe not, given how much change there's been and how young the Fire is. This is Philip Zinkernagel's team now, right? Like, it certainly feels like he is fully the guy driving this train.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. He does get the goal contributions. I still think there's something to Hugo Kuipers being that guy simply because he is the effort guy throughout, running 90s. He's played so many full matches this year without coming off the bench.
It's been really underrated how many full 90s he's played. I mean, and no offense to Tom Barlow, but Kuipers for the last 2 months basically just doesn't come out of games.
Yeah, it's a club record signing that's proving its worth at this time of year when you need those extra minutes. Because if you're going to get in these situations late where you need a goal, you need him in front of the goal. Because if nothing else, he set up Waterman's shot. It was Kuipers' shot that was saved. He creates opportunities for everyone, and if you give him enough in front of goal, it's there. So there's so much with this team, but Kuipers is that guy, I think, still. Zinkernagel will always be there. He's always that calming presence, but Kuiper pushes everybody to that next level.
Right. And, you know, I'll go out of order a bit on my rundown here, but, you know, Kuipers plays the pass of the game in this game.
Yep.
And it's that 89th minute. You know, Kuipers is on the edge of the area. He hits this cutback, and on the TV screen, it's like, oh, man, that ball's behind Zinkernagel. Where on earth is that going? And then Gutierrez comes in from, you know, stage right and, you know, fires not the best shot, but not a bad shot. Good save by Matt Turner down to his right. And so, yeah, Kuipers is just, I think that's a good point, Joe. Just the sheer effort the guy gives, you know, how he seems to have really taken to the leadership role he finds himself in this team, even though it's only his second season, is, you know, in terms of when we talk to players of who does it feel like the spokesman for the team are, and it's Kuipers and it's Chris Brady, I think, are the two guys in a lot of ways who feel like they are those dudes. Worth noting what Berhalter had to say about Phil after the game. He said, quote, "Phil's been a catalyst for our attack. You see sometimes when we're struggling, he's struggling. How Phil goes, the team usually goes. We need him in the playoffs to be who he is, to continue the goal-scoring form, and to be aggressive." I think that's what you see. When he arrives at the top of the box, top of the penalty box, he has a ton of quality. He has really been to use an old cliche and to show my fandom, I know he does, in addition to being a catalyst for the attack, he does love a Frank Lampard late arriving, I'm going to come to the top of the box and hit the crap out of this ball. All right, let's get to the chaos that was the stoppage time of this game. 90th +6, New England goal. Marin Haile Selassie messes up the offside trap. Everybody else does their job and doesn't move. Marin keeps everybody on side and doesn't mark his man. And Dor Turgeman, I don't know how to say that, scores anyway. That feels like it. Feels like the Fire's fate is sealed. Fire going to Central Florida for the grossness of the wild card down in the humidity. Again, Joe and I both throw tweets out saying that that's what's happening. And then Turgeman scores an own goal on the other end. Joel Waterman has the shot. All the nonsense, all the chaos. Tim, we love a no-quit attitude, and we've seen that from the Fire this year in a way previous versions of this team have not. But boy, you would like this not to be a scenario where you needed the no-quit attitude.
Yeah, they made it hard, right? Like from the first minute, conceding that goal, they made it harder on themselves. And then you think, all right, you're comfortable with where they're going to end. And then stoppage time up into the result. And I think it was like 12 minutes overall or something like that before the final whistle was actually blown. It was nuts.
It was very silly, but it ends 2-2. The Fire finish 8th. They salvage at least that much. Joe, I thought Greg Berhalter's comments afterwards were interesting because he was pretty adamant about, basically thinking about this result at all, or was like looking backwards to think about it as a missed opportunity. He was much more focused on that no quit attitude. Does it make sense to view this game as just one of 34 at the end of the day rather than the game that is going to be kind of looming, I think, in a lot of people's minds, depending on how tomorrow night goes?
If we really want to start breaking down results that have doomed the Fire to lesser amounts of points this year, this is where I'm inclined to agree with Greg on this one because, yes, the way the Fire gave up 2 goals against New England is unacceptable, right? It's just a bad back pass and then poor defending on a set piece, right? So to just dwell on that, and especially with midweek, I don't think it would have been productive, but I mean, still, let's go back. There's the Atlanta game in July. There's the DC United game. There's so many games if you really want to do that.
Silly red cards a couple of times throughout the
Or
season.
silly red
Stuff.
cards, yeah. But they also escaped the Orlando fixture where Chris Brady gets an early red card with a 0-0. There are those. I don't think it's productive at all. So if they really focused on it, again, maybe if they had a full week, you could have. But there's no value. And the win of that weekend for the Fire is not having to travel. They have a home wild card game. They're the 8th seed. They are in a position to go to Chester on Sunday, and they should.
And look, out of the 2 teams that are playing on Wednesday, I mean, Orlando would switch places with the Fire over recent form. No questions asked, right? Like, they've had 1 win in their past 10. Like, the Fire on a 5-game undefeated streak. It's a completely different situation.
Yeah, so let's get to it. And I think we've got something for the YouTube viewers on this as well. Let's get to the tail of the tape for tomorrow, 7:30 p.m., SeatGeek Stadium. Apple TV Plus, you do not need the MLS Season Pass subscription to watch tomorrow night. So if you have the normal Apple TV subscription that gets you like all their shows and stuff, you'll be able to watch this game. This season, there's been these 2 matchups. We just mentioned one of them, 0-0 at Soldier Field, where Chris Brady gets sent off, and then Orlando could not hit the broadside of a barn for the next hour, and just the worst shooting display I think I've ever seen in a soccer game. And then the Fire go down and they win 3-1 at Interco Stadium. This is the game where Ugo Kuiper scores 2 goals in 2 minutes. All time, 7-8-8 in competitive fixtures. I didn't include one random friendly that these teams played years ago, because if you do, you get literally, it's an 8-8-8 record that these teams have against each other. Fire are +5 in goals in those games. They have won 4 times at home in 12 tries. And, fun fact, this will be the 2nd time the Fire and Orlando play a knockout game in their club histories. Fire won 3-1 in the quarterfinals of the 2015 U.S. Open Cup. And in terms of, let's remember some guys, David Accam, Patrick Nyarko, and Kennedy Igboananike are the goal scorers in that one for the Fire. Tim, you mentioned how bad Orlando's form is right now. They just lost 4-2 to a Toronto team who, again, is looking forward to next season. Yes, Toronto got a draw against the Fire as well, but they have really struggled down the stretch. It feels like the Fire might be getting Orlando at the right time, but what are you going to be watching for in the early exchanges of this game to get a sense of where we're headed?
So you talked about the bad habits that started at the beginning of the season for the Fire. One of those bad habits was slow starts, and the Fire got out of it. I think that we're looking at, if that happens again like it did against New England, then it's going to be a bad night for the Fire. And so I'm looking for a quicker start from the get-go, unlike what we saw in the past 2 games.
Right. Joe, I mean, when you think about how this game is going to match up and, especially the threat Orlando can pose with their attack when they're on, do you think we see a game where Orlando, given their poor form, are going to be more defensive, or do you think it's more likely we get a track meet out of this one and it's just kind of pure chaos and just, MLS After Dark vibes?
I'm getting more MLS After Dark vibes for a lot of reasons. For one, it's the 3rd time these teams are playing, and the Fire have gotten 4 of the points. It's so hard to get through 3 results against a team, 3 positive results against a team. And Orlando has some veterans. They have guys who are going to make this a mucked up game. I'm really worried about Marco Pasalic and the things he can do against this Fire backline. He was a real threat in the game in Orlando and somehow didn't score. If you look back at that game, the only goal the Fire conceded, it was the one poor touch Christopher Cupps had that entire game. He played the full 90, but that was the only goal they conceded the entire year against Orlando. So there's a lot of reasons for Orlando to try to make this one a dirty, stupid game because they just haven't had that success on goal against the Fire. And if they can muck it up, get up a man for some early yellow cards, that will put them in a great spot in this contest.
Yeah, and if there's a place to try to muck up a soccer game a bit, SeatGeek is not a bad venue to do it. Should also note, low tomorrow night is 43 degrees. So again, we're not quite in bear weather territory. Certainly the three of us will have to make some considerations given the copy and paste Los Angeles press box that exists at SeatGeek Stadium, which remains my least favorite fact about that stadium is that's why that's the case, is it's literally just Dignity Health Sports Park. All right, I know, you guys at Men in Red have your own specific prediction system, so I'm not going to get into that level of detail, but I think it's worth asking, Tim, do you think the Fire are playing in Chester, Pennsylvania on Sunday?
I think so. I mean, they're still, they came into it in better form. I think that Oscar Pareja, we've seen his teams down the stretch of just like the way that he manages teams. Guys are just exhausted by the end of it. And I think that's going to happen again here. Fire make it into win a playoff game for the first time since 2009.
And who's going to be your man of the match, do you think, in that situation?
I mean, look, I'm going first. I'm going to take the obvious one, Philip Zinkernagel.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Joe, how about you? Are you hopping on a bird to the East Coast in a couple of days?
I think so, and dealing with the Eagles.
Well, you're so excited about
Chester, Pennsylvania.
The Chester, Pennsylvania tourism board is going to come after you, Joe.
I'm available for sponsorship if they need anything. Go Elk Grove Village for them, happily. This is going to be obviously the most difficult game of the year for the Fire against Orlando. I do think they're going to concede a goal or two, but it is going to be one of those games. It's going to be 3-2, 2-2. It could go to penalty kicks, and that would be really dangerous against Orlando. Pedro Galese hasn't had a great year, but he's still Pedro Galese, and if it goes to PKs, the mind games will show up. That's where the value in Kellen Acosta comes. But I do feel confident that this team can get through this round as long as they don't make the catastrophic mistakes. They can't do that. They've had so many of them this year. You got to get them out in the regular season. This is not the time for it.
You have now put the idea in my head of Kellen Acosta scoring the game-winning penalty to send the Fire through the next round, which on the one hand would be fun as hell. On the other hand is the most stressful scenario possible because if Kellen's taking a PK, I love Kellen, but if Kellen's on the field at that point, something has probably gone kind of wrong in terms of personnel or the way the flow of the game went, because either somebody got hurt or he was brought on as a defensive sub and the Fire blew a lead. And then also, if Kellen is taking a PK, I don't see him going any sooner than fourth or fifth. So that penalty shootout has gone interestingly at that point.
You kind of wonder, is Jack Elliott having PTSD flashbacks at that point, making him less effective of seeing Kellen Acosta in a knockout game? I mean, I don't know.
So I'm going to make it 3 for 3. I think we are going to get Jack Elliott returning to his old stomping grounds. And what is Chester, Pennsylvania, if not the Bridgeview of Philadelphia? If we're being...
You can actually see a bridge from it, unlike Bridgeview.
That is true. There is quite literally a view of the bridge from the press box at Subaru Park. We could see a water tower, though, from the one in Bridgeview. So that's... something.
And Mount Bridgeview, the majestic mountain of whatever the heck that is that may cause cancer.
Is there trash buried under there?
Yeah.
Maybe. Is it something?
Maybe one of the best case scenarios. Yeah.
I mean, to be totally honest, yes. And I don't know. There's a possibility that this is the last game the Chicago Fire play in, this hallowed ground. And what a way it would be to just, hopefully never see it again. There are possibilities for next year, but hey, that was going to require confirmation of what is happening with that stadium after a couple months from now. So I say that the Fire, in their first home playoff game since 2017, as Tim said, I think they're going to get their first win since 2019. I think it's going to be
10 years before
2009. Ugh. I've been around this team since 2019, and this is going to be a little unlike anything we've seen since then. So I think we've got the Fire at Philadelphia on Sunday, and then it would be Philadelphia coming to Chicago the following weekend. We don't know exactly what day and time that theoretical game would be. We will cross that bridge when we get there. Just kind of a quick rundown of what to expect in terms of coverage from us at CHGO regarding this game. Keep an eye out on the CHGO Fire and the CHGO Sports General social channels tomorrow. Make sure you're following CHGO on Instagram and TikTok in particular. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff from Bridgeview tomorrow, kind of throwing everything we can at covering a playoff sporting event in Chicago like it should be covered, because guess what? We don't get a lot of those these days, and we're going to enjoy it while we're here. Thursday afternoon, we're going to have a podcast. The current plan is that I'm going to be joined by other great friend of the show, Alex Calabrese. We will be recapping the game against Orlando City and hopefully previewing a game against Philly, at which time we would also be able to share some fun theoretical plans we've got around here for an away game against the Union on Sunday. But for now, we are going to say so long from Chicago and from the West Loop. Joe Chatz, thank you as always for taking the time, for calling in and joining us on the show. See you tomorrow night.
See you guys. Can't wait to be all layered up and warm next to y'all.
And Tim Hotze, thank you for making this commute in addition to already knowing you were going to be making another soccer-related commute tomorrow.
Just call it a pilgrimage or a penance or something like that.
I mean, hey, but in terms of the time travel, this is a lot more reasonable because, man, if you haven't experienced I-55 rush hour traffic, look forward to it tomorrow. Fire fans, leave yourselves lots of extra time to get there. Thank you, Sean Anderson, behind the scenes. Shout out to him, as always, on the ones and the twos. Thank you to all of you for watching here live on the CHGO YouTube page or listening wherever you get your podcasts. Again, follow along tomorrow night. Tune in on Thursday. Hopefully it's a happy show. We'll find out tomorrow evening, 7:30 p.m. Fire back in the playoffs, taking on Orlando City in the wild card game. I'll be there. Hope everybody listening to this and watching this is either there or watching as well. And hopefully we're having a good Wednesday night out in the burbs. I'm Alex Campbell. I'll see you next time on CHGO Fire.
Two of them, or I guess four of them, 2 games tonight, tipping off with the Warriors and the Lakers and the Rockets and the Thunder. Just going to be awesome matchups to kick off this season. So I could not be more